Hello, everyone, and welcome to Gratitude Hour. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Eileen McConville from the Central Eastern Carolinas chapter, and I am the mother of an adult with CF. I am so excited to be here with all of you for this virtual event during National Volunteer Week. It's honestly one of my favorite weeks of the year. To celebrate volunteers is just so special. And we all volunteer in different ways, whether it's advocating, researching, fundraising, or just lending a helping hand in any way you can. We never stop working toward a cure, and we will go until it's done. I'm grateful for everyone who's here. I hope that you sit back, relax, and come away from this event with a renewed sense of gratitude. We have an exciting lineup of speakers this evening. We will begin with Andrea Rodriguez, an adult with CF from New Jersey, followed by Adam Brostowitz, an adult with CF from Wisconsin. And then I have the pleasure of sharing the screen with my friend Maria Znidarsic, also an adult with CF from North Carolina. At the end of the night, we will ask you to join us in a live gratitude pop-up, where you can volunteer to join us on screen or through the chat to share what you are grateful for in our CF community. Before we get started, we have just a few logistical items to go through. A note for the chat. You'll want to change the drop-down menu to make sure that your messages go to all panelists and attendees. That way, everyone can see your comments. And if you find the chat distracting, you can close it by clicking on the arrow to the right of the chat icon and choosing to stop the preview for the chat. Closed captioning is available and should automatically appear at the bottom of your screen. You can hide these subtitles or adjust the view by clicking the CC icon at the bottom of your screen. Lastly, be aware that tonight's full event will be recorded so that we can share the video recording with those who aren't able to attend tonight. And without any further delay, I am so excited to invite my new friend, Andrea, to tell her story. Welcome, Andrea.
Thank you, Eileen, for that presentation. Good evening, everyone. My name is Andrea Rodriguez. I am 45 years old. I am I'm a person with cystic fibrosis. I'm also a double lung transplant recipient, a breast cancer survivor who had a double mastectomy. I'm also a congressional captain, and I'm on the board of directors for the New Jersey chapter. First and above all, I'd like to thank God for putting me here, my family and friends for being the pillars that they are, for supporting me, my CF teams and transplant teams for knowing that I have the willing to live was stronger than the diseases. I am grateful for the foundation for bringing awareness to an orphan disease. Growing up wasn't easy. I always had a cough. I was always out of breath. I was diagnosed at the age of 14 years old. At this point, my doctors had told my parents that I would die by the age I was 17. And hearing this, obviously, I didn't want to celebrate a birthday. It was something that was always looming in the back of my head, that I was just closer to death than I was to living. But obviously the doctors were wrong and the science was wrong at that point, because here I am at 45 years old. I was hospitalized every 3 months for 2 weeks. I was in and out of the hospital like most cystics were at that point. I was homophysizing. I was actually transitioned from one hospital to Morristown, where I met Dr. Field. Ironically, I went to Dr. Field at 28 years old with 28% lung function. It took a lot for Paula Lomas to bring me over and convince me that that was the way to go, that instead of seeing a pediatric doctor at 28 years old, it was kind of the time to put my big girl panties on and see an adult doctor. I didn't want to go because obviously it was taking me out of my comfort zone. Being told, my parents, once I transitioned to Morristown, my dad was like, "What do you mean this guy doesn't want to hospitalize you every 3 months or 2 weeks? Like, that's what we're used to. Like, you need to find a new doctor. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about." And I said, "Dad, this guy said that, unless I'm sick, this is the way to go. Like, there's you have to treat the symptom. My dad wasn't happy about it. I was able to bring my lung function to 45%. It was still in and out of the hospital many, many times. It was like it never ending. Nasal surgeries, never hearing a good word or a positive reinforcement from not from Dr. Field. Obviously, through all our times with all of our doctors, it was, you're not getting better. You're not this. To what point, as a teenager, I stopped taking my medication, and the doctor said to me, "Well, you're doing great. What are you doing?" I said, "Nothing." Obviously, we all go through our times where we want to be non-compliant. And she said, "You know, this is going to catch up to you." And I said, "Well, you're giving me good news, so I'm doing something good at this point." Um, it wasn't until I was about 32, maybe 35. Lung function kept decreasing. I kept teeter-tottering about 35% total. And the doctor said, "You know, sooner or later, you're going to have to be on the list," which I was since the age of 19. I was dually listed. And I said to him, "Well, if and when that point comes and God deems me worthy, he will provide. For the time being, he has bigger fish to fry and he has bigger problems to deal with than me." And I just waited patiently. It wasn't my time to have a transplant. I kept on my activities. I worked out. I had a job. I met up with Stephanie one year, and she said to me, "How would you like to speak at one of our functions?" I met her through William Squires. And at that point, it was at the Venetian. It was for a fall fest event that they had. And I had asked her at that point, like, "How much have you raised?" And I believe it was her and Tony that they said at that point it was $26,000. And I said to her, "Okay, I'm going to double that." She said, "Oh," she gave me that look, like, "You know, that's a little far-fetched." You already knew with the look that she gave you. I was like, "It's a little far-fetched." Before I got off the podium, we were already at $52,000 and counting. I'm grateful that I'm able to bring awareness to a disease that is considered a rare/orphan disease. I'm grateful that I'm here to be able to tell my story. At the age of 41 and a half, I was transferred to Columbia Presbyterian. Wasn't obviously my better moments, but it's what kept me here today. I was transferred to Columbia Presbyterian. I was at end stage mycia. I was put on the transplant list on March 11th of 2019. First set of lung came, they were compatible but no good. The second set came a day or so later. The lungs that I have in me today came on St. Patrick's Day. I was in and out of the OR, obviously the days of surgery, the 18th and 19th. Doctors came out and told my parents they didn't know how I was still alive, as my lungs came out in pieces, of how diseased they were and how much infection was in the chest cavity, that they would have to have me go in and out of the OR to be able to scrape the infection from the chest cavity wall. To say that God wasn't watching and my teams didn't give up on me I have to say that he was always watching. As obviously having I had a tracheotomy. I was in a reduced coma. I had to learn how to walk, how to talk, how to eat, how to do everything. And all I would do is actually point and say of what I wanted to do, that I would like to walk, and I would point. And they would say, "In due time, it'll happen." I was released from the hospital about a month later. And I want to say that year, Trikafta came out in November. And there was no research for cystics who had double lung transplants to be on Trikafta. March of 2020, I started on Trikafta. reached out to my nurse, Kristen. And I want to say within days, like I texted her and I said, I got to send you something. And I was like, it's gross, so be aware. So I sent her a picture of what had come out of my nose and I said, it's working. She started laughing. She's like, it sure is. She was like, did it have to be that graphic? I was like, I can't pick and choose what comes out. And Trikafta was helping obviously with the digestive, was also keeping the infections at bay in my nasal cavity. That same year, or actually the following year, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. At that point, I stopped taking Trikafta because I needed to make sure that I was able to go into the OR and clear out. And to say that once I stopped Trikafta, my face became very brownish, like had spots. And I went to my ENT doctor and he said, you need to start Trikafta, which at that point I did. To say that within days, my face cleared up, I was feeling better, the infections went away. He was like, you need to stay on it. And if I'm here today, and my purpose is obviously to bring awareness, to advocate so that other patients don't go through what I went through, don't have to deal with that situation. I am grateful that I have the life that I live. I was asked once, if there was anything in your life that you could change, what would you do? And I said, well, I have some boyfriend that would be questionable, but I would like to have CF because obviously it's made me who I am today. I appreciate everything in life. I don't take not a thing for granted. And I'm beyond joyous to be here, to be able to advocate, to bring awareness, to raise money, and to know that I don't want other people to go through what I went through. And above all, I thank God for allowing everything that happens in life. Adam, what are you grateful for?
Hello, thanks, Andrea. Hi, everyone. My name is Adam. I am an adult with cystic fibrosis, and I will be 34 years old next month, actually. I received a bilateral lung transplant in November of 2018, and I grew up in the Peoria, Illinois area, if anyone from there is on, but I live outside of Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now, and have for the last 8 or 9 years. So I'm really happy to be asked to speak tonight. And I think as a community, we often have gratitude for many things without realizing it at times. But I just wanted to start by saying the first people in my life that I'm grateful for is my family, obviously. I really want to say my mom and dad are two people that really inspired me to be who I am, and to push me through what I needed to growing up, when it came to CF care and the complications that come with it and everything. I have a younger sister that does not have CF, but she really, without knowing it, and she won't believe me if I say this today, but she really influenced me to be strong when I had to do treatments and stuff like that, because I knew she was looking up to me. And so I guess I'm just really grateful for having the three of them growing up, my parents and my sister, and being able to share hard times with someone and have them be there for me. My mom was always my biggest supporter during treatments, hospital visits. So I'm really grateful for her. She was the one making sure insurance would go well, as I'm sure a lot of our moms, or at least our parents, have for us, getting me to do what I needed to do, and just was the first person that showed me what like advocacy looked like. She still tells the story of how she knew something was wrong with me and the doctors weren't catching it and weren't listening to her. So she remembers telling the doctors for months something was wrong without them listening, and then they diagnosed me with asthma, and so they said we're gonna test him for this thing called cystic fibrosis. And my mom always says the doctor said he bet his career that I didn't have it because I had good weight at the time. So 2 weeks before my second birthday, they told my parents um, that I had cystic fibrosis, and my mom asked for his medical license right there because that's what he said. So I'm really appreciative of her. Um, she used to say, "You need to do what you need to do so you can do what you want to do." Um, and that phrase really like stuck with me and still does, because she was talking about I had to do my treatment so I could go play with my friends, or I had to do homework so I could, you know, do what I wanted to do after. And she really started saying it like related to CF, and then it kind of just became her motto. And that's something that I found really important and really meaningful, and I still say today. So obviously, I can't talk about gratitude in family without talking about my wife and daughter. Um, they came into my life about 3 years ago, and we just became a family right away. My daughter's almost 11, um, and so I missed the first part of her life, but um, I always say that just that kids get it. Like adults are the ones that need education sometimes. Like they're the ones that we need to convince because kids just get it. And when I first met her, um, I told her about CF, and she instantly knew what was our new norm in terms of like being careful about germs, about sickness, just things I needed from them and everything. And she still just randomly checks and asks, "Did you take your enzymes?" Things like that, and she just gets it. My wife Mel, I met her after my transplant, so she really still has not really seen CF, so to speak. She hasn't like seen the week stays in the hospitals and um, having to do hours of treatments, which is a good thing because that means I've been healthy since my transplant. Um, I've had a few minor hospital stays for observation, and I've had like my port removed, which she was there for, which seem small and basic to me and just minor things. But I know they were extremely hard for her to see me go through because that was a big thing for her. And I don't take that lightly. I really appreciate and love my wife because of just how easy it was when we first met. Um, it was just easy and natural for her to understand like what I needed to. I remember like the first date we ever went on, we talked about CF and my transplant, and she went home and started taking notes and in her notebook and researching everything about CF through the CF Foundation and all these other sources. So I still remember that because she cared and wanted to be ready for whatever happened with us and with the future. And I truly felt comfort in knowing that she was ready to take care of me if needed and when needed. And that's still something that I struggle with letting her do. Um, and I think it's because I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, have experienced, we tend to not like being taken care of until we absolutely need to and kind of just throw in the towel when it's too much. I really think we don't want to lose the autonomy that we have. Um, and that's something that's hard for us to do sometimes, and sometimes we are just ready to be taken care of, um, but that might look different for everyone. But when it comes to CF and transplant, my wife Mel, um, she's always had the perspective that she understands that she doesn't understand, as in she understands that she doesn't know or doesn't understand what I went through for years of coughing and hospital visits and having gone through transplant and how hard that was. But she recognizes that I've been through things that she hasn't, and in turn has shown me that I can recognize that she's been through things that I haven't. And that was something that I'm really grateful to like understand from her, um, and whatnot. So I think also with friends, I feel like I have kind of two separate groups of friends in my life. There's my pre-transplant family and friends, and there's my post-transplant family and friends. For anyone that has had a lung transplant, might be able to understand or relate to that. Um, but there's different understandings between the two groups, and I'm grateful for both in different ways. I think the pre-transplant group, as I will call them, is they kind of know what I've been through and are happy with where I'm at now, and the I appreciate them because my closest friends, it'd be I'd have a coughing fit and they wouldn't stop the conversation. Like they'd just keep going because they know I could hear. They knew I was still listening. Um, but I could tell, like, if I was around people that I didn't know so much, they would stop, ask if you're okay, which is the worst thing when you are okay. You're just going through your norm. Um, and so I think just being appreciative of that, and then also having like post transplant group of friends, um, where people know me in a different way, if that makes sense. They understand that I've been through a lot, and they know that I'm immunocompromised, and respect that, but they weren't there prior, so they kind of understand, but they don't see what I've been through. But I think that's a good thing too, because they know that there are things that they haven't seen, but they're still supportive. So I'm grateful for both those group of friends, my pre and my post. Um, and so, anyways, um, I think for anyone, it's really hard. I wanted to talk real quick about just like dark times or hard times. I think those of us with CF or loved ones, or have people that they know with CF, we have to come to the realization that at some point we don't really have control over our situations, but we can have control over our mindsets at times. And I'm not talking about mental health concerns, so to speak, or extreme situations, but more so like our outlook on what we're focusing on. And I think if we focus on the negative outcomes and the negative moments in our situations, that's our mindset. Um, but I think if we take things moment by moment, that's something that helped me not be overwhelmed when things were difficult, when I'd be in the hospital, when I didn't know what the result of a surgery was going to be, things like that. And it's not easy to do, but I think I grew to understand that after a few years, and something that I still kind of hold on to. Um, I think with all this, um, everyone in the CF community is different. I think there are a lot of us that take pride in our unique situation, that we've learned to know as our norm, or some of us maybe not as comfortable with having CF be known by other people. But I think that's okay either way of however you want to handle people knowing about your CF and you in general. I think the CF community is made up with people having their own views and opinions on what CF looks like, and I think that's really awesome. And some of us want to make big connections with other people with CF. Some people want to do it their own way. I think all are valid, and maybe a mixture of both is helpful. I'm not sure, but um, I kind of took pride in growing up and having like a unique situation. Then when social media really came out and I was able to find other people, um, really, it really added a lot of friends to my group, and a lot of opportunities that I've been involved in. So in different things, in terms of been part of Fallrist, the Cystic Fibrosis community musical, which I saw Nicole Cora's on here, and I'm sure she's giggling right now because I just said her name. And because she's here, I'll plug that our a few of our songs will be streaming soon for Fall Risk. So there she is in the chat giggling. But yeah, different things that I've been involved in with the CF Peer Connect, BreatheCon, review committees, commercials, other things over the years. I'm just really grateful that there's a platform and there's a community through the CF Foundation or our own communities that we build, little pockets of people that want to connect and for different reasons. And I think that's awesome that people are able to do that. And I'm grateful that people find what they need when they need it. So overall, I think there's a lot of things that I'm grateful for. And when it comes to, life lessons that I've learned, the experiences I've had, the people in my life, all make it worth it. So thanks for letting me share a little bit. I am going to turn it over now to Maria and Eileen for the next portion. Thank you.
Hi, Adam. Thank you. All right, so I will get us started. Yeah, hi, Eileen. My name is Maria Znidarsic. I am 26 years old, and like Eileen introduced me earlier, I'm also someone who lives with CF. I'm originally from Ohio, but I did move to North Carolina after I graduated. And a big part of the reason I was able to move to North Carolina was because I started on Trikafta. I use this phrase that Trikafta gave me wings. So it was really the reason I was able to move down here. And for that, I'm of course immensely grateful. But before I moved to North Carolina, I was in Ohio. And I'm, very, very grateful to my family for being there for me before I was on Trikafta. Because like Adam, I have a similar experience, like Adam's experience with transplant. Like my experience is that I have a different identity pre and post Trikafta. So my family knows me pre-Trikafta Maria, where they had to, my sisters would pick up the slack on the chores because I'd be doing my breathing treatments, and mom and dad made that an okay thing. Mom would take her days off and take me to the doctor's appointment. And I actually remember my entire family came to the doctor's appointment where I started on Trikafta. So that's a pretty special moment. So thanks to them for all that they've done for me throughout the previous 24 years, I guess, before I was on Trikafta. Excuse me. But like I mentioned, I did move to North Carolina because of Trikafta. And I know that getting Trikafta to market is no easy task. It really takes an army. So I'm extremely grateful to all the people that made it happen. I know the foundation was a huge part, all the people who have volunteered for the foundation in various ways, the researchers, the clinical trial participants. Hopefully I haven't missed anyone too big, but thank you. So I know all of you on this call were involved in some way or another. And another thing I'm grateful for moving to North Carolina is I got the opportunity to meet Eileen. She's really been my CF mom, is like what we like to say. So I'm actually going to hand it over to her and let her introduce herself and tell you about her daughter's story as well.
Thank you, Maria. And if your family's on the call, I've heard wonderful things about you. And just so you know, we have your daughter covered. She has a CF mama in North Carolina. My name is Eileen McConville, and my daughter Katie has CF. She is 38 years old. And so our journey began at a time when hope wasn't a really big commodity. The day Katie was born, she had meconium ileus and she was in the OR at 18 hours old. And I remember my family was around. They moved me to a private room where they moved women who whatever, they're going to go home without their children. And so we kept saying, as long as it's not a disease, maybe she has a kinked bowel, maybe she has this, if it's not a disease, if it's not a disease. And then the surgeon comes in and he looks at us and he says, have you ever heard of cystic fibrosis? And the only way I can describe that moment, it's like glass shattered kind of over our heads, and just, it all just kind of crumpled because I had heard of it and it wasn't good things. But what I'm grateful for, very quickly, we were aligned with a CF care center, St. Vincent's Hospital in New York, which unfortunately is closed now. but we had a physician who said to me, we had been told that she might live to be 15 or 18. And like I said, she's 38 and doing, we'll get to her in a minute, but the physician said, don't listen to the numbers, don't listen to the statistics. You treat this child like you treat your son. And I want her to play every sport and run all the time. And the more active you can keep your daughter, the better she's going to do. So I'm grateful for forward-thinking physicians who dared to dream of things that could be instead of things that were at the time. And because when you had a child born in 1985, like I said, hope was not something that we had in great quantity, but we had just think about a future where things are going to be different. And so that was a really important part of our physician experience. We then moved to North Carolina when she was 6. And we got linked up, fortunately, with the wonderful care center at UNC, who has taken really good care of Katie. And that care center relationship can really change the way you go about caring for your loved one, or in your case, Maria, now that you're an independent young woman in a new place, caring for yourself. So I'm curious, what was it like for you to leave not only your mom, and I give her tons of credit. My daughter lives 6 hours away, and that's really hard. And so you live pretty far away too. What was it like for you to transition to a new state, to a new job, and to a new care team? Tell us about that.
Yeah, of course. So the move to North Carolina, it had exciting elements, but it also had scary elements to it. So I was excited because, like you alluded to, I was going to be able to live independently. I was pretty sick my senior year of college. I actually thought I was going to have to go back home and focus on my health once I graduated. The previous summer, so the summer going into my senior year, we got home from vacation, and I remember not being able to walk across the airport without having to stop and catch my breath. So I never imagined being able to move to a new city on my own. And because I didn't envision that, once I had the opportunity to, I was like, I have to go do this. I never thought I was going to do this, and now I have to. But that move, at the same time, as exciting as it was, also was very scary. I was moving to a place where I didn't know anyone. And there were really, like, in terms of the CF world, there were 2 big transitions that happened. The first was the transition of care teams. So my team in Ohio at Rainbows, I still went to a children's center in Ohio, but my team in Ohio was awesome. And I really never thought I would find a connection like I had there. But I'm very fortunate because my North Carolina team, actually it's the UNC team as well, they're also great. And the teams really worked together and made my transition so smooth. I think one thing I appreciate about both sites is that they've been so good to work with, and the reason is because they've always met me where I'm at. And when I talk to them, I feel like my opinion matters and is like being incorporated into my care plan to make it realistic for me. So grateful for my care teams in both locations. And then the second transition was really the transition of local chapters. So I was pretty involved in the Ohio chapter. I remember speaking at events maybe since like 12 years old, and being involved in a few different events up there. But when I made the switch to North Carolina, it was really good because it allowed me to make connections in the area. I actually got involved in the Tomorrow's Leaders organization, or part of the organization in North Carolina. I've met so many people through that. I think one thing that amazes me when I've met volunteers is that people are so generous with their time, despite not being that closely tied to CF. Like, I know one of the girls I work with, she just like did a rotation and worked with CF patients, and she really liked them. And I'm like, oh, and you're now willing to give up your free time to fundraise? So I really appreciate volunteers. Honestly, it's, National Volunteers Week, so want to give a shout out to them. But Eileen, I know you work closely with a lot of volunteers at the gala that you do. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I can, and you're right, Maria. When we meet volunteers, it's one thing for me as a CF mom and you as a CF patient to give our extra time and energy for something that's going to benefit our families directly. But when you meet folks who just hear our stories or want to get involved and they become volunteers with a more remote connection, it just touches the heart. And so I chair a function down here in Wilmington, North Carolina, called Pipeline to a Cure. And what I found fantastic, especially last year, so Katie is also on Trikafta. She has an 8-year-old son called Simon, who is the light of my life. And she's one of the little small group of 200 some odd that had babies before Trikafta. And they're doing well now, and she rides bikes with him, and it's been a beautiful thing. But when we were at Pipeline last year, what I was touched by was not only the work of the volunteers, not only how many hours that everybody put in, but the majority of people at that event were people like me whose family members had Trikafta, were people who were celebrating a joyful time where we could see our children and the people we love breathing. But we also, what was fascinating is we raised 50% more last year than we had the year before. And it was people were doubling down to say, I want everybody with CF to feel the joy I feel. I want everybody with CF, no matter their mutation, to have the resources, to have the gene editing, to have whatever it takes to feel this good. And so when Katie was born, back in the Bronx, there was a week later, we get a phone call from the midwife who delivered Katie that she had delivered a baby 1 week later, the same midwife in the same hospital, and that little girl also had CF. And Katie and her became friends, and the mom and I became friends. And that little girl has a nonsense mutation. And so my joy will never be complete until the little girl who was born 1 week behind Katie has the same access to medications that Katie has. And what I saw at Pipeline was volunteers and donors who were saying, we're all in. We're here with you. We're here until CF stands for Cure Found. And so I'm grateful for volunteers, for donors, for people who get it, that joy is not full and not complete until 100% of everybody that has CF has access to the treatment that you have and to the treatment that Katie has, and Andrea and Adam. Everybody's benefiting from changes. So, but we need more. We need 100% to benefit. So that's my key thing that I'm grateful for this National Volunteer Week. And Maria, why don't you bring it home with some closing thoughts about our day?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally echo Eileen's sentiment. Kathy, I hope you don't mind me calling you out, but I saw in the chat that you mentioned that your child has not been able to benefit from a modulator. So definitely want to echo Eileen's sentiment that we are not going to stop until all of us have a treatment. I actually personally did not start fundraising myself. Like, I've done fundraisers, but my mom did the fundraising. So I actually didn't start fundraising until I was an adult post Trikafta. And the reason for that is I want everyone to feel as good as I do. In a way, you almost feel guilty feeling good when the rest of your community isn't. But thank you to Eileen. Thank you to Adam and Andrea, the other speakers, for sharing their stories. And thank you to all of you on the call, as well as all of the volunteers. So now that you have heard from us and what we are grateful for, it's your turn. There's a couple. You can drop a comment in the chat, or even better, click the raise your hand button on the bottom of your Zoom screen to volunteer, so we can bring you on screen and hear you. To raise your hand, you just are going to click on the icon labeled participants at the bottom of your computer or phone screen. And then at the bottom of the window, click the button labeled raise hand to share. So then someone in the background will promote you to a panelist, and you'll have the option to unmute yourself and turn on your webcam. If you don't want to turn on your video, don't worry about that. Just hearing your voice is enough. But a reminder to all, if you do want to come on camera, that this is a recorded event tonight. So I see we have a couple people in the chat. Oh no, there's a lot of people in the chat. I think I saw something from, oh yeah, is grateful for our national foundation and its dedication to finding a cure. Agree, Gigi. All right, but actually it looks like we have someone who wants to come online. Carrie Padding, is first up to share with us. Hi, Carrie. All right, there we go.
There.
Hello.
Yeah, it took me a hot second to do that. It's been a long
You're
day.
good. Thank you for coming on screen.
I just want to say thank you guys for sharing your stories. It's amazing. I'm a CF mom. Gavin is 12. He is on Trikafta as of a couple years ago, and we are very, very grateful for that. We also have triplets that are 9.5, 2 carriers and 1 without CF. But just thinking through today and really kind of preparing myself mentally on what this gratitude hour could be and what it should be, is I'm just thankful for my care team as a CF mom, who lets us come and ask questions and be vulnerable and supports us in so many different ways. And also my CF mom friends who I get to get online with and meet up at conferences. We just really support each other and understand each other. And I have those CF mom friends whose kiddos don't have that miracle drug. They're not on Trikafta. And so we will not quit until it's done. I'm thankful today for actually Ashley Tharp from the advocacy and policy team. I got an email earlier today that one of our senators from Kansas, I live in Andover, Kansas, so the Wichita, Kansas area. I'm part of the Heart of America chapter. One of the senators we spoke with when I did March on the Hill in March has actually signed on to lead and co-sponsor the Help Copays Act. So that was something I was really excited to share today. So every story matters, every voice matters, every phone call, letter, email, tweet, your stories matter. Things are going to be changing for the better, and I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on and sharing.
Absolutely.
All right, so while we wait for others to, if they want to hop online and hop on screen, I should say, and share their stories, that would be appreciated. But I apologize if I've missed any comments in the chat. There's been a bunch that have come up. But it seems like a lot of people are grateful for sharing their stories. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of people are grateful for all of us for sharing our stories. So if you want to share your story, hop on the screen and chat with us. Oh yeah, Dana, I hope it's Dana. Dana is so grateful to the local chapter, her local chapter, who is relentless in carrying out the mission of the CF Foundation. I agree with that. I'm also grateful to my local chapter, as well as the national chapter or national foundation. All right, hopefully I'm not missing anybody. All right, well, thank you all for sharing tonight, whether in the chat or coming on screen. And thanks for joining us at Gratitude Hour, giving us some of your time. We hope you leave with a renewed sense of purpose and gratitude. I hope you all have a great rest of your night and a wonderful National Volunteer Week.